Okay, I'm going to make a video today about, well, actually about this video that I got in 10 parts and then posted it, texted it to one of my friends and found out the next day it disappeared. And then found out that it was available in 9 parts. They took the middle part out, which was about the pedophilia. And so they're going to let that one fly. But anyway, what this has to do with this new phenomenon, QAnon, there's a lot of people out there that basically believe everything they hear. And it's because they're looking for hope. I mean, basically, they're looking for hope. They're trying to find a way to survive in this crazy world, whom our politicians have made it into. It's completely political. And it really comes down to, the two families that started the whole thing. Remember, there's Adam's family that Cain's bloodline isn't likened unto his. So Cain's got to have a bloodline, and we know that Cain's bloodline is going to rule this place, at least while for now. Doesn't mean for always, means, maybe for a little bit longer. But they've got to convince everybody that they have the right to do that when they don't, in fact, have the right to do that. So this is the problem. So if you read all of your biblical scriptures, some of you are biblical fanatics and you've read every single thing in the book of Revelation and you totally understand it, you completely get that there's basically going to be a change, right? The dragon and all those that worship the beast and the dragon. The beast is the lion, and the dragon is basically, I mean, I'm sorry, you can say it's a dragon. It's more than likely Orion's, and is certainly connected to the insect family. Anyway, we're going to skip all that for now. We're going to come back to that on another video. I just don't have time for it today. So what we're going to talk about is the 13 families of the Illuminati. But before we talk about that, I just want to, I found this in Wikipedia. I found that it was a note to give a copyright credit or a note so that you could verify where this idea of Camelot having to do with John F. Kennedy, where did that come from? So Jacqueline Kennedy had an interview with Theodore H. White in Life magazine on December the 6th, 1963, which is about 14 days after his assassination. It says, coincidentally, the November 23rd, 1963 edition of the London Herald, okay? Now, people always want to know, where were you on that day? November 23, I believe it was the day before, but that was, I remember seeing this on TV, and I also remember that it was on my birthday. So at that time, I was 4 years old. On this day, that in 1963, November 23rd, 1963, in the edition of the London Herald reporting Kennedy's assassination, had the subheadline, America Mourns Camelot Dream. And then later, Jackie on the 6th talks about it. So actually, to be honest with you, it wasn't Jackie that first talked about it. It was the London Herald. Now, why would the London Herald be reporting that this event, JFK's death, his assassination, would have something to do with Camelot? Remember now, King Arthur is a much revered, myth in British, mythology, okay? fact, an interesting movie, Guy Ritchie's version of the King Arthur story is laced with all kinds of Freemasonic symbolism. Not to mention, you know, all of a sudden we see an Ursula figure from Disney shows up in the moat underneath the city, and anyway, that's bizarre in itself. Anyway, so you know, there's always a lot of you know, hocus pocus bominocus. You know, we're gonna pull a rabbit out of the hat for you, and that's what they do. Most of you are looking at it going, golly, how do you do that? So, you know, I just had to make this video because I think it's time to do it. Can't delay it any longer, because I watched this video with these 9 or 10 different little shortcuts of the video, and at the end of it, they had John Jr. still alive and in a costume, and his wife in the same room, and his, you know, her sister in the same room, and he's alive. So John Jr. is alive. He didn't die in the plane crash. Again, hocus pocus, bominocus. We're going to, he's probably not the only one that's going to be alive. Before this is over, we're probably going to see Diana as well. Probably Elvis and Michael Jackson too. Though I'm not really all that interested in seeing any of them. So, all right, so John is not dead, which I find very interesting. So let's talk about this gentleman that wrote this book, the name being Fritz Springmeier in 1995. It's worth reading. But this is where I found out all about the Illuminati families. And I found out that in his book, he doesn't alphabetize them. So he puts the Rockefellers out front. He puts the Rothschilds behind them. And then he puts, boom, right after them, the Kennedys. So what does the Kennedys have to do with Arthur and Uther Pendragon? Interesting idea. We're going to try to explore that a little bit. So the Kennedy bloodline, the Kennedy family abounds with marriages to names such as Alcatels, Baileys, Booth, Buckleys, Collins, Hatfields, Humphreys, Freemans, James, Phelps, Reagans, Russells, and Smiths. The Kennedys that we will look closest at are related to the Fitzpatricks, a powerful Irish family whose coat of arms has 3 fleur-de-lis with a dragon and a lion. We see that on the royal family. We see that dragon, and we see a lion, and we see a unicorn, which is chained to a lion many times. Again, the ties between various Illuminati families is very involved in a long unraveling process, similar to untying a set of bad knots confronts the researcher. So this is going to be from Fritz's book. We just go ahead and you can read all about the 13 families and the extra families that are tied to them as well. But let's start with the Kennedys. So the Kennedys are supposedly descendants of Brian Bourne or Brian Boru. We're not able to quite tie that one down, but the bottom line is also known as Brian Kennedy. Now notice the similarity to the word Canada. And I've always said Canada was just another way of saying, you know, House of Cain, Canada. And, you know, you guys are Americans. You see, they hide it in the language, people. They hide it in the language. And his nephew would call it Synody. Get it? Sin-a-d? Anyway, very little information. But that is where they're going to try to make the connection to the Illuminati family, the Kennedy Illuminati family being connected to King Arthur. So Camelot is apparently going to be connected to this up-and-coming coup d'etat that one half of the Illuminati are going to pull on the other half of the now running the place Illuminatis. We can read about that in the Protocols of the Elders of Zion, which we will do if we can get to it. So I just want to read a little bit about it. It says, if John F. Kennedy had not been assassinated and so much about his life examined and written about, a window allowing us to see the Kennedy Illuminati family may never have opened so wide. First, the assassination attracted attention. In recent years, the Illuminati have given permission publishing houses to print exposés of JFK's sexual life. Now, this is important. It is believed that this permission was given in an effort to deflect criticism of his assassination by allowing his reputation to be tarnished. He says, I hope the readers are beginning to realize that things are totally corrupt at the top and that JFK was no different than many others that have been and are today at the top of the politicalness in this nation, political mess in this nation. John F. Kennedy had a very attractive, very active sex life, even after he married Jackie and even after he was president in the White House. For those who don't think secrets can be kept by the elite, one only has to look at how John Kennedy was able to have sex with many women while president and to have frequent nude swim parties at the White House pool and the general public, not knowing anything about it. John Kennedy's lust for women was well known by the elite. Illuminatus George Bundy warned his friend JFK while JFK was a senator that JFK's openness with women might get him into trouble with the public. John F. Kennedy was so open about his sexual habit that at one party at the Mayflower Hotel in Washington, D.C., John Kennedy openly had sex with one partner in front of the party, while his friend Senator Estes Kiever did the same. Then they swapped partners and began again in plain view. John F. Kennedy and many one-night stands, as the world calls them. Think about this. This is what's going on. I mean, this is what's happening in Eyes Wide Shut at their mansions and their parties. This is what they're doing. They're having sex. There's also 17 minutes of the movie that got Kubrick killed, assassinated because he refused to take it out, so they had to get rid of him, with pedophilia. And we see that that's going on now with Pizzagate. And that's not a joke, people. That's not a joke. It's not a psyop. It had to be leaked by WikiLeaks. And by the way, I understand that there's quite a big, drop of information by WikiLeaks here just recently. So you might want to check into that if you don't know about it. There's quite a few things that were just dropped into the public. So these were merely women hustled up by his aides of the Secret Service or his friends like Frank Sinatra. But Kennedy also had long-term relationships with some of these women he was sexually active with. It is those relationships that reveal so much about the hidden satanic side of Kennedy's sexcapades. John F. Kennedy had 3 long-term girlfriends, Marilyn Monroe, Jane Mansfield, and Zsa Zsa Gabor, which were also girlfriends of Anton LaVey. Now we're going to get into him a little bit, who has headed the Church of Satan. Jane Mansfield was a high priestess of the Church of Satan. Marilyn Monroe was a participant in LaVey's satanic rituals before LaVey founded his Church of Satan. Both JFK and his brother Robert Kennedy had affairs going with Marilyn Monroe, and both visited her prior to her mysterious death. Zsa Zsa has been interested for years in the occult. JFK also had relationships with other women connected with the Illuminati also. Before we examine the significance of these 3 relationships of JFK, and before we get into his liaisons with other women who were in the Illuminati connected, let's cover the relationship between Anton LaVey and the Illuminati. California was a very fertile soil for Satanism due to the host of factors. 2 lesser-known factors are that there were Haitian communities which practiced voodoo in California as an early part of this century. Also, California became a haven for witches and Satanists fleeing from France. So America, Cuba, and other places where their satanic practices were not tolerated, California had a reputation for acceptance of their evil rituals. When one adds to this such things as Hollywood, it is easy to see how San Bernardino Valley has become such a strong satanic center. Anton LaVey's maternal grandmother was from Transylvania, which, by the way, who's related to the Transylvania Count Dracula? The royal family. It was from this side of the family Anton LaVey got encouraged towards the occult. Anton LaVey loved horror movies. He studied Aleister Crowley, Barbara Bush's dad, and OTO, which had lodges in California, which is where he lived. And in 1947, he joined the Clyde Beatty Circus. The Beatty family connects within the Illuminati families also, by the way. LaVey worked for several circuses and learned how to be a showman. He worked the occult sideshows of the circus and found that people wanted to believe occult frauds. Anton LaVey found Marilyn Monroe, a Jewish girl, working as a striptease in strip clubs. Anton LaVey helped her performance and through his connections got her started on her big new career. LaVey used his talent and showmanship to create a type of Satanism that could be marketed to the public. LaVey always manages to walk a tightrope between openly supported hardcore satanic practices, such as human sacrifice, and being just simply theatrics. In other words, let's see if it goes on to explain this. He blatantly supports enough evil to attract evil people. See how this is done? But he publicly never allows himself to be connected in any way with child molestation or human sacrifice, etc. And in fact, they'll even make jokes about it. Anytime that they're making a joke about child molestation and human sacrifice, just arrest them. Just give them their card where we'll all know where they are and arrest them, get them out of the way. Because if they're making jokes about stuff like that, that's just not right. Anton LaVey was into Satanism before the 1960s, but was not until 1966 that he founded the Church of Satan. 1966, 966. Some hardcore Satanists feel he is all show. Other hardcore Satanists form covens and try to serve Anton LaVey because they view him as a role model. The Illuminati set up their headquarters in Southern California this century. San Bernardino County is their headquarters. Notice that we get the same thing in New Orleans where the Catholics are. Lots of voodoo. Yep. And you see anywhere where supposedly Catholics are, the COVID virus is taken over. Of course, as I have written before, that the Illuminati is too secret to carry out anything themselves. They need co-workers. So see, they don't even do this stuff themselves. They recruit you people, the public. You see, you're not going to be in the family. You're just grunts. Says the Illuminati is strictly hereditary. That's going to be your downline of Cain, right? Brian Kennedy, Kennedy, get it? The Illuminati secretly controlled the satanic cults at what is sometimes described as stage 4, stage 5 of Satanism. The lower levels are the recruits, grunts, the privates, so to speak, in the army, Satan's army. In the San Bernardino area, one type of the high priest of stage 2 and 3 is a master counselor. Other positions include the keeper of the books, the keeper of the seal. In the late 60s, Mike Warmke, who was a high priest and master counselor, raised the number of Satanists in the first 3 stages up to 1,500 members in San Bernardino area. Bear in mind that these 1,500 active Satanists are not Illuminati members. They are much lower than the lower Illuminati ranks, such as the Sisters of Light, the 5-star general, and as Asmodeus, who are the middle management types of the world order, who direct the upper levels of priests of the covens of Satanism that are open to the public. Anton LaVey participates in conferences for the occult where Satanism, first 3 stages, and secret Illuminati overseers are present. In other words, LaVey is not out of touch with the hardcore Satanism. He just manages to keep his public profile clean. It is meant that way. Anton LaVey is publicly an agent to give Satanism a good image. Now let's go to Marilyn Monroe and Jane Mansfield. So we can tell a lot, right, about a guy by the company he hangs with. So Anton LaVey knew how to be a showman. He took Marilyn Monroe, helped her with her acting, and with his connections helped her get a chance to act. John F. Kennedy had a long-term relationship with Marilyn Monroe. When JFK was elected at the convention to be a presidential candidate, the Kennedys threw a party at the convention. The party was described this way. Every delegate at the convention was provided by the Kennedy group with anything that they wanted for their entertainment, including liquor and women sent to their room. JFK spent the time at the convention and the next day afterwards making love to Marilyn Monroe. After his acceptance speech, the whole group went over to his close friend Peter Lawford's for a skinny dipping party. I've heard about these famous skinny dipping parties. Peter Lawford, Frank Sinatra, Sammy Davis Jr. were close friends. To each other and to John F. Kennedy. Sammy Davis Jr. became a member of the Church of Satan after LaVey started it. From the middle of 1955 to the end of 1959, JFK had a suite on the 8th floor of the Washington Mayflower Hotel set aside for his extramarital affairs. This is from an FBI file. Jane Mansfield. During the 1960s, James Mansfield and JFK had their relationship. They met at places like Beverly Hills, Malibu, Palm Springs. JFK had several men who bearded for him. This is how they would act like the women JFK was to get. Were like they were on a date. One of these was Dave Powers, who even went as far as to write a book. Johnny, we hardly knew ye that whenever Jackie left Washington, JFK, Jack, and him would eat together, and then the president would say his prayers and go to bed alone. One of the things Dave Powers did was to help procure a steady stream of new women for Jack. This is what bearding is. Okay, so let's revisit the top 13 Illuminati families. The intention originally was to have an attitude on top Illuminati Kennedy families in two parts. Perhaps sometime a second part can come out. So far, I have only exposed a small part of the Illuminati Kennedy family, as might be expected of any good Illuminati family. The Kennedys are connected to drugs, to the Monarch program, to death and euthanasia programs, to the British monarchy, and to various organized crime groups, mafias, etc. For this issue, I merely want to cover a few aspects. One aspect is the connection of the Illuminati Kennedys to the drug trade, and another is their connection to the death care and the Knights of Malta. So, you think Obamacare is about death panels. No, 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 no. They're telling you right here where these death panels come from. And I'm going to attach a video to this where a nurse is talking for another nurse who won't do this for herself, is complaining about what they're doing to people in these hospitals up in New York. After World War I, Joseph Kennedy worked for Galen Stone, who was a partner in the prominent firm of Hayden Stone and Company. Hayden Stone and Company had its ties to Rothschild. In order to gain respectability, Joe married into the Fitzgerald family. This is a common Illuminati tactic. It seems many of the Illuminati men look for a wife who will gain them respectability. Often wives like this are not even brought into the Illuminati activities so that they can be the best cover possible. Now, I'm going to tell you, in the Book of Mormon, it goes into great detail about Lamech and his two wives. And I'm going to tell you, after Lamech was beaten by his two wives for what he did, they no longer decided to let wives in the loop. So I'm just saying, most of you Freemason wives, you have no idea what your husbands are doing, but let me tell you what it is. They have signed a pact with Satan to get gain from murder. And just so you know, they have to kill eventually to get really high in Satan. The Freemasons, the Satan worshiping, they have to kill somebody they love. And that's exactly what you see in the movie King Arthur. Not only does Arthur's uncle kill his wife so that he can get the throne away from his brother, but he also kills his daughter at the end of the film to get an opportunity to kill Arthur and get him out of the way. So anyway, most of the time they kill their grandmothers because that's where their inheritance comes from. So grandma, if your grandson is in Freemasons, you better get yourself some protection and make sure that you pay attention, because these are evil bastards that can convince you that they are the sweetest kind. They will say, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, yes, sir, no, no, sir. And then they will kill you while your back is turned. So just be aware of that. That's how they operate. See, that's how they work for their boss, Satan. That's how it's done. And it's a great story in the Book of Mormon. I believe it is in the Book of Abraham. No, Book of Moses. Book of Moses. You got to see it. It's fantastic. It's a fantastic story. So anyway, that's how they're doing it. So Kennedy's mob connections has been written about, but perhaps two are worth pointing out again. Joseph Lindsay, who was a kingpin of organized crime in New England and a partner in crime with Meyer Lansky, was a business partner with Joseph Kennedy. Joseph Lindsay is, in fact, was listed as one of the top contributors to Ted Kennedy's Senate race one year. Andre Meyer, head of the Meyer family, was manager to the Kennedy estates. One other business partner of Kennedy was the Bronfmans, who are powerful Illuminati figures in Canada. There you go, Canada again. Kennedy was in business with Newark Renfield Syndicate, of which the Bronfmans owned 50%. Winston Churchill, whose connections to the elite are brought out in other newsletters, personally gave the grant to Joe Kennedy, which gave him the Brit Alcoholic Distillers franchise for the American market. After Joe Kennedy became the American ambassador to Britain, we can catch a glimpse of how powerful the Illuminati are. The British royal family, at the request of Joseph Kennedy, put on their full royal regalia for the Kennedy family. Now, why would they ever do that? Why would they ever do that for a common family? You see, there may be more to the story, which we're not going to be able to get at easily, to Brian Bourne or Boru, whatever you want to call him, Canada, who was supposedly a king back in way back in Ireland in the 10th century AD. When Kennedy arrived in Britain as an American ambassador, he contacted the Astors and the Sassoons. Sir John Wheeler Bennett, founder and head of the RIAs, research division, is credited by those in the know as having written Kennedy a master thesis. So he wrote a master thesis for Kennedy, which was later made into a book, Why England Slept. Perhaps one of the items that is best shows the hidden power behind Kennedy is his daughter's marriage to William Cavendish and Joseph Kennedy's comments about it. Kathleen married the Duke of Devonshire. The Duke of Devonshire was prestigious position within the British nobility. Dukes are the second only to the monarchy. Now think about this, dukes, right? Who's that? Whose sons are all dukes? Esau. And yes, there is a connection to Cain and Esau together. There's a huge connection. Joseph Kennedy was often heard saying, if Catherine and her husband were living, I'd be the father of the Duchess of Devonshire, First Lady in waiting to the Queen, and the father-in-law of the head of all Freemasons in the world. So the Duke of Devonshire was the head of all Freemasons. And it gives the book and the page. It's the book, A Life and Times, Joseph P. Kennedy, A Life and Times. And it's on page 378 for anybody that wants to go look that up. Okay, so I'm running out of time, so I'm going to start to skim through this just a little bit. So the Kennedy Institute for the Study of Human Reproduction and Bioethics, located at the Jesuits, Georgetown University. Now, if I could have a field day on these guys, because when they take their Jesuit oath, they basically agree to kill anybody that doesn't believe what they believe. I'm talking about these cataholics. They're cats, lions, who are what? Drunken. What are they drunken on? They're drunken on people's bloods. So if you are not believing what they believe, even if you're Christian, because they consider you a heretic if you're Christian, they can kill you, they can do whatever they want to you. That's in their oath. I'm going to read that another time. I don't have time for that today. Is a helping fund for the King of Malta's hospice movement in America. Now, this hospice movement, now you got to pay attention. So, what is the hospice movement, which is being conducted by hospitallers? One of the names the Knights of Malta go by. This is a movement to allow old people the right to die. The Knights of Malta have an ancient history running drugs and administering mind-altering drugs in their hospitals instead of giving medicine. Wow. It's like the end of Soylent Green, isn't it? I find it interesting that they will do that. Let's read some more. It says, this ancient activity was carried forth into modern times when their St. Christopher hospitals in London began giving patients Brompton mixture until they died. Brompton mixture consists of heroin, cocaine, alcohol, tranquilizer, chloroform in the water. This mixture is given in Knights of Malta hospitals to patients every 3 hours until they die. It's euthanasia or mercy killing. May seem like a merciful idea until a person finds out how the people at the top of this euthanasia movement view things. They view things similar to the Satanists, Adolf Hitler. This view is that it is merciful to get rid of unwanted people. That's what they're doing. They're getting rid of unwanted people, just like Hitler. You see the comparison? And this was in Great Britain, and they're doing this right here in the USA today. And this link I'm going to put on here, I wish you would please look at it, because this girl is explaining exactly what they do and how they do it. It says, although the death hospice movement seems benevolent at first, it is the conclusion of where the program will end up that is the kicker. Hospice Inc., which is linked to the elite, is also provided funding by the Kaiser Foundation. Besides ties to running drugs, the Kennedy clan has had their problems with drugs. Now, I'm not going to go into all their problems, but believe me, they have lots of problems. It says elite people such as the Rothschilds, Winston Churchill in London, and the royal family were using all cocaine, heroin, and opium, not to mention occult ceremonies too. Queen Victoria, thought by many to be such a straight-laced lady, and her guests regularly use large quantities of cocaine and heroin. So let's go to a short summary now, and it's not going to be short, but I'm going to try to keep it shorter because there is more information I want to get into. It says, this revisit to Kennedy shows some of their ties and elements with the Illuminati's vast scheme of things. Until people begin to recognize that the Kennedys wielded an occult power via their bloodline, they will not begin to appreciate why the Queen of England and her family would honor a request from the Irish commoner to have their family dress up in full regalia for the pleasure of this commoner's family. Now, see, there's your Arthur connection. It's the only thing it can be. The friendship William Churchill had with Billy Graham, with Joe Kennedy, and his very close relationship with Onassis have recently been discussed. Churchill was an active Freemason. He was also a Druid. Now let's talk about who the Druids were, because you've heard of a guy in the Bible called Jethro, right? Well, you know, this is Moses' father-in-law. Well, this is a Druid priesthood that he belonged to. So they were practicing Druidism. If you want to know about Druidism, just look at the way Moses set up his religion. Just look at it, and you can figure it out. You know, they had a whole tent full of pot smoke, you know, that would fill up the place with pot smoke. And that's where their God would show up to them and talk to only Moses. I mean, they were burning acacia trees. I mean, hello, that's a hallucinogen. Likely, manna is mushrooms. I'm not saying all of them are hallucinogenic, but, you know, they think about where they were out in the desert. Okay, let's continue. Follow up on the Kennedy family. It says, last year I read a book which was very well researched. It is entitled A Question of Character, A Life of John F. Kennedy by Thomas C. Reeves. The book does away with all the propagandas, media hype, and lies and tells the truth about the Kennedys. The book is well documented. The author spent a great deal of energy trying to find out the truth about JFK. What emerges is not public image that is so well known. JFK only had about a 119 IQ. So these rumors about him being an AB negative, not going to be true. Can't be. There you go. There it is right there. Did very poorly in school? Well, that's possible because, you know, AB negatives will go to school and say, no way. There's no way we can buy this crap. And could barely spell. JFK's father had the wealth and connections to buy his son anything. Although Kennedy had a back problem, which made him almost crippled. Now this is key, and that might be why they went ahead and put him out of his misery, because he was in misery. His father got him into the Navy during World War II. When he was let in, the examining doctors looked the other way at his back problem, which plagued him his entire life. Kennedy got a commission as a naval officer without having to go through the normal channels of training and being commissioned. As a naval officer, he did a poor job. And the great PT 109 story was far different than what the public has been led to believe. The fact that Kennedy let his boat be run over by a Japanese destroyer was because he and his crew weren't paying attention, sleeping, hangover, etc. Kennedy realized he might be court-martialed for his negligence, but his father had the money to turn the disaster into a story that made Kennedy into a hero. There you go. Skipping. It says JFK managed to hide from the public during his life the fact that he wore glasses. He also, to some degree, his intense back pain, which hurt him intensely. On page 40, we learn that JFK was unable to ever have a self-revealing conversation. JFK had a total lack of ability to relate. Everything was very surface in his relations with people. He was very skilled at picking up women and getting them into bed. And he had good friends. However, he didn't have the ability to love or relate to others. Cain, we got a whole country full of these people. They had no compassion. Not saying all of them, just saying they can't relate. They're a different kind of animal, so to speak. With Jack, nobody really admired what he did or respected what he did, but liked his personality. He flashed his smile. He could charm a bird off of a tree. At the age of 17, Jack went to Harlem to a brothel. Later, he nicknamed his sexual organ JJ. JFK went for 1 year to the London School of Economics, according to the story given to the public. Actually, he went there for 1 month, didn't do any academic work, and came back home. But it is significant that his father tried to send him to a school in which so many of the elite had gone. His father bought between 30, he wrote this book, Why England Slept, Henry Luce, who headed Time Life and who was a good friend of Joe Kennedy. Gave the book good publicity in Time magazine, and his father bought between 30,000 and 40,000 of the books and stored them in the attic and the basement at Hyannisport home in order to make Jack's book a bestseller. Boy, it must be nice. Joe Kennedy worked for the FBI in World War II. JFK's favorite sister, Kathleen, married William Harrington, whose father was the 10th Duke of Devonshire, a pillar of the Church of England called an Episcopalian church in the U.S., and a high-ranking Freemason. He's hanging out with Freemasons. So let's see. So it goes on. I'm going to skip here because there is so much disinformation out about the people who run this country. It must sometimes seem rather bizarre that people like me come along and say there is a satanic conspiracy of great magnitude. If Americans were as whole, critical thinkers and would challenge the propaganda that the controlled media give. This is back in 1995. Then the false fonts and false public images of their leaders might not get written up so easily as history. There are not many critical thinkers in this nation. Okay. So I could go on, but I think you get the picture. The picture here is that John wasn't that great of a guy. So it's terrible that he was assassinated, and nobody wishes that on anybody. But now that I hear all these things, and I'm not so sure that he was competent to be a president, really, to be honest with you. So now we've got to deal with John, whom apparently they're going to make king of Camelot here in the U.S. That's the big plan. I don't know what Donald Trump's role in this is. Maybe he'll be high in the, the new king's court. I don't know. But we have to deal with this. So let's deal with it right now. Let's first of all talk about the protocols of the learned elders of Zion. I call them Zeus Lioness. These are the bankers, basically. The bankers are what, we're talking about. Oh, just one other thing. Whenever you hear this name, Lord, just remember, it's really means lowered. Like fallen, lowered. Think about it. Lowered. A lowered state of being. All right, anyway. So this is what they say. Now, these are the Jews that say they are Jews and do lie, and are not, and do lie. Goyim are mentally inferior to Jews and can't run their nations properly. Now, the true Jews are going to be the B negatives, and they are very intelligent, and that is why they can get away with saying this. But there has to be a balance of wisdom and love. And see, that's the problem. So these particular ones don't have no love. You see, if they were, they wouldn't be bankers. So just remember, you know, when you're trying to judge a person, you got to look at the love that they have for other people. It says an awful lot about them. And you got to remember that a lot of these people can fake it out. I mean, they're real good at it. But there are some telltales, and we will cover that in a future video. So for their sake and ours, we need to abolish their governments and replace them with a single government. That's the New World Order. This will take a long time and involve much bloodshed, so they're not going to have no love for some people to get in their way. But it's for a good cause. Here's what we'll need to do. Now, keep in mind that in the book of Israel, we're told that Esau's got to go, and then Jacob comes in. Now, I never thought of Jacob and even his son Joseph as who inherited the name Israel, not Judah. It's the wrong guy, see. He didn't get the name Israel. Joseph's two sons did. That's who's Israel. You need to be looking at what month people are born in to have that determination. Now, I'm not going to lie to you. John is born in the right month, okay? But look at everything that he's got to overcome. And let me finish reading this to you, and it'll be a little shocking as to how they've been planning this for a long time. Now, they're going to deny that this is real, okay? But look how accurate it is. Oh, my goodness. It says, place our agents and helpers everywhere, which they've done. That'd be Freemasons, right? But not just Freemasons. There's plenty of secret societies. Take control of the media and use it in propaganda for our plans. Had they done that? Start fights between the different races, classes, and religions. Have they done that? George Soros is behind the Black Lives Matter thing. I say get him. Hey, Black lives do matter. But let's get the evil bastards with the Illuminati, let's get them out of there. They got nothing but manipulation on their mind. Use bribery and threats and blackmail to get our way. And that's what Jeffrey Epstein was doing. Use Freemasonic lodges to attract potential public officials. Well, they've certainly done that. You can't even be a cop, a judge, or a lawyer without being a Freemason. Appeal to the successful people's egos. Oh, you're so wonderful. This is why I hate it when people come on the videos and start talking about, you know, how wonderful, you know, I might be because I've done a little bit of research. Please don't do that. It's not necessary. Appeal to successful people's egos. And they do. That's how they suck them in. I've had one do it to me before, so I know exactly how they do it. This has been 35 years ago, but they have all the tools to do it. And if you have a character that is slightly flawed, you're an easy target. Appoint puppet leaders who can be controlled by blackmail. Jeffrey Epstein. Replace royal rule with socialist rule, then communism, then despotism. Abolish all rights and freedoms, except the right of force by us. Sacrifice people, including Jews sometimes, when necessary. Boy, we've had enough Jews sacrificed recently. Weinstein, you know, there's quite a few of them. What's his name? Well, I mean, you can look it up. Again, They don't always advertise that, but Weinstein is a perfect example. Eliminate religion, replace it with science and materialism. So you might want to consider how important religion is, that they want to get rid of it. But if you notice, everything that we hear about science is a lie. I mean, they won't even tell you the truth about the flat earth, and they've got it on all their world flags. I know some of you don't believe it, but just wait. You know, wait long enough. You'll be told by somebody you'll listen to. But all I'm doing is planting that seed for you. Control the educational system to spread deception and destroy intellect. Boy, they've done that. Rewrite history to our benefit. Yep. The wieners can write the books. Create entertaining distractions. Yep. Corrupt minds with filth and perversion. Well, you know, you can find that all over the internet, all over TV, all over movies, even books. You know, they've done a fantastic job of that. There's nothing but sex and violence happening now. And the jokes on the popular shows are sort of disgusting if you really think about it. I mean, you know, Charlie Sheen's show is terrible. The jokes on that show. Mom, the show Mom is terrible. See, they're breaking down our family. That's what they're doing. Our values. That's what they're, you know, striking at. Our very values. Encourage people to spy on one another. They've got a police car that runs around here where the citizens patrol. Keep the masses in poverty and perpetual labor. Well, we're doing that right now. It's coming. That's what's coming. I mean, you've been in labor, but you haven't been in labor like you're going to be. Take possession of all wealth, property, and especially gold. So they're going to take possession of all of your homes and all of your, see, this is how they do it, by getting rid of the economy. See, all of that's coming. Use gold to manipulate the markets, cause depression, etc. And, you know, the stock market was invented by the British. And remember, it's just a big old Vegas gambling deal. That's all it is. Introduce progressive tax on wealth. Replace sound investment with speculation. Make long-term interest-bearing loans. Give bad advice to governments and everyone else. Now, have they done this? Yeah. I mean, this is why everybody is so behind Donald Trump. They've set Donald Trump up as the guy that is going to get the swamp drained. Do you think he's going to do it? No. He will not do it. It'll just be replaced by a whole new cast of characters who won't be any better, trust me. Eventually, the Goyim will be so angry with their governments because we'll blame them for the resulting mess that they will gladly have us take over. You see, that's what they're doing now. We will then appoint a descendant of David to be the king of the world. Well, is that a blood descendant? In other words, look, this is what I love about John Kennedy being AB negative. Can his kid be AB negative? No, can't happen. That's not how it works. But I see also where they have said that he's O. So it's online that they say that his bloodline was O. And that makes more sense. When the royal family, when Queen Elizabeth was inaugurated as, or coronated, excuse me, as queen, she was literally on a throne that had 5 tiers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's the 5th heaven. I have identified that as the O negative heaven. And you can read that Elizabeth was O negative. You can read that Charles was O negative. And these are like Time magazine articles, and they both had red hair. I don't know why they dyed their hair for so long. They didn't want people to know they were redheaded, and now it seems to be like they want everybody to know Harry was red. And this is why I thought for so long that Harry would be the king of the world. But when I look now and I see what they're doing with John and how he's not dead and how they want to Camelot, they want to bring back Camelot, it's not all that shocking. So a descendant of David to be the king of the world, and the remaining Goyim will bow down and sing his praises. Everyone will live in peace and obedient order under his glorious rule. Well, that would be lovely. But if that's the case, then all your book of Revelation is a lie, you see. Because they didn't go down into the pit. You see, they got to go to the pit. This is the thing. They got to go into the pit for 1,000 years. They don't get to go up on the surface and rule. You see that now? It's Jacob's turn. Now they got to go and go get in the pit. They got to be separated because of their behavior here. And they've earned it. And it's interesting, if we pull up the Targum of Palestine, let me see if I can bring this up real quick. Targum. Which is a much more accurate book than the King James Freemasonic Bible could ever be. In fact, go look at the original one with all the Masonic handshakes all over it. Let me see if I can find this. I need a PDF of it. Why did I not? Did I spell on Targum of Palestine? Well, look, I got another way to do this. Here we go. Give me just a second. Okay, here we go. So, we got to go to Genesis 3. So this battle is between basically the original inhabitants of this world, which are going to be your Australopithecus, Homo erectus. Now, if you have a bump on the back of your head called an occipital protuberance, then you can consider yourselves one of them. And Homo sapien, which is the upgrade that supposedly the Illuminati, the Anunnaki did to do us all a favor and make us have much more speed in evolving, supposedly. But really what they did is they've given us this crummy DNA that we've all been mixing around that tends to be a little bit evil. I mean, really. So where do we get this to happen? It says, the serpent was wiser unto evil than all the beasts of the field that the Lord God had made. So this is a created being. And he said to the woman, is it true that the Lord has said, you shall not eat of every tree in the garden? And the woman said to the serpent, from the rest of the fruits of the trees we can have, but we have power to eat. But of the fruit of the tree that is in the midst of the garden, the Lord has said, you shall not eat nor approach it, lest you die. Now, what is this? This is lust. This is the tree of lust, is what this is. Lust for money, lust for sex, those are the two main problems. See, love and lust are not the same. Lust is a whole different deal. We learned that from the Illuminati, because that's all about consuming someone. You know, basically taking them over and making them a property. But you see, that's not love. See, not even close. So lust and love are not the same. We're going to make another video. My next video will go in deeper to that. So in that hour, the serpent spake accusation against his creator and said to the woman, dying, you will not die. For every artificer hateth the son of his art. Well, he's talking about himself. Because you got no rules, you see. For it is manifest before the Lord that in the day that you eat of it, you will be as the great angels, and you will be wise to know between good and evil. Well, you'll be wise to know about it. Whether you can do anything about it, that's a whole different story. And the woman beheld Samael, the angel of death, and was afraid. Yet she knew the tree was good to eat from, so she did. Now, when we get down here, we're going to find out. Let me see. Adam said, the woman whom thou gavest to me, she gave to me of the fruit of the tree, and I did eat. And the Lord God said to the woman, what hast thou done? And the woman said, the serpent beguiled me with his subtlety. Now these are children, okay, that have their children, okay, because this is how Satan does it. And deceives me with his wickedness, and I ate. And the Lord God brought the three into judgment. And he said to the serpent, because thou hast done this, cursed art thou of all cattle and of all beasts of the field. Upon thy belly thou shalt go, and thy feet shall be cut off, and thy skin shall be cast away once in 7 years, and the poison of death shall be in your mouth, and the dust shall you eat all the days of your life. Now, that sounds like a cleanup job to me. And that, to me, that sounds like insects. And when we look through this book, it actually connects the creepers, because remember, we have beings that are creepers. They're not well defined. They creep upon the earth. We find out that they're insects in this book. That's exactly what they are. Creepers are insects. And not only that, the ones that fly too, and then we've got something called a dragonfly, which isn't the nicest bug. And I will put enmity between thee and the woman, and between the seed of thy son, which is going to be Cain, right? And the seed of her sons. And it shall be, when the woman keeps the commandments of the law, they shall be prepared to smite thee on the head. But when they forsake the commandments of the law, thou wilt be ready to wound them in their heel. Nevertheless, for them there shall be a medicine. But for thee there will be no medicine. And they shall make a remedy for the heel in the days of the King Mashiach. Now, if you think John or JFK is worthy to be called King Mashiach, then you see their narrative, but it just doesn't quite, it's like they're the other guys, right? They're the ones trying to keep something that doesn't belong to them anymore. Their days are numbered. They have to go into the pit, according to the book of Revelation. If you believe it, that's where they have to go. And they will go because they know that that's where they have to go. But see, they got to take as many with them as they can. So be careful who you vote for, or that you vote at all, because really all of them are corrupt. I wouldn't have anything to do with any of them. So that is my point. This is what I think, and I hope that you have gleaned something from this video. I look forward to the next one. Thank you for your time and your attention.